All right, welcome into Off the Radar. Taking a look at some various stories around sports. Some of them would probably fall into our normal conversation, but a few things outside of that as well. But the big breaking news that came out over the last 5 minutes or so, we talked about the rumor that was churning along earlier, actually a couple hours ago, but now it is official. Ohio State is hiring Oklahoma State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles as the new defensive coordinator of the Buckeyes. It is official. Ohio State's already sent out an announcement, and I saw our buddy Max Olson, who made mention of, and talking with people at Oklahoma State, they said that losing Jim Knowles would never be a matter of money. And so this is not a money move necessarily, although I'm sure he's being paid handsomely by Ohio State, but just a career move, I suppose. But yeah, Jim Knowles, last we saw him in orange and black, he was facing Baylor in the Big 12 championship game, and his unit did a hell of a job outside of the first half, really. And even in the first half, they made some plays, but obviously pitched a dang good performance in the second half, shutting Baylor out. And, that's going to be the last Big 12 game he coaches for at least the foreseeable future, because he's headed to the Big 10 in Ohio State.
Baylor did not score in the second half. There was a blocked field goal near the end of the first half, which I thought could come back to haunt him, and it surely almost did. And then they had another missed field goal. Hankins, who's been so good, his defense shut them out. And now you wonder, Mike Gundy, he has a personality currently of who they were this year that worked. Does he go out and find someone like that to make sure the personality doesn't change of their football team?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's very curious. Now, look, there's some good DCs out there in the water, that he could go and get. One of them I would think would be Will Muschamp, to keep that, because the other way, no offense to, offense taken. The other way wasn't working for them. Were they in the Big 12 title game the other way?
No.
No, it wasn't working. So this one got you in the Big 12 title game. It's, to me, a little bit more sustainable. So might as well go big.
Yeah, but I mean, that's because of Jim Knowles. I mean, that's the thing. It's like that style worked because of the guy who just left. So, yeah, I mean, you can go the defensive route and stay that route, and Muschamp might not be a bad hire, but I mean, you were who you were this year because of Jim Knowles, and so now he is gone. He is headed to Ohio State. It's official, and Ohio State says that they will continue preparing for the Rose Bowl with their current 10-man staff, and that Knowles will start on January the 2nd. So, yeah, now big shoes to fill, and maybe it is a Muschamp. I mean, certainly there's other defensive coordinators. You never lose a guy and then you're just dead in the water necessarily, but that is a huge blow for Oklahoma State. That was a big part of their identity this year.
And he was up for the Broyles Award, that, along with Jeff Grimes, that went to Gaddis at Notre Dame today.
Yep. Tulsa defensive coordinator Joseph Gillespie is being hired by TCU. He is heading to the Horned Frogs. He's going to reportedly be taking former Baylor cornerbacks coach and current Tulsa assistant Carlton Buckles with him to Fort Worth. So make that Kaz Kazadi and now Carlton Buckles from the old Browl staffs that are in Fort Worth, which is just kind of funny to think about given what a lot of Frogs fans said a few years ago. But he is, Gillespie is going to be leaving Tulsa, heading to Fort Worth, taking Carlton Buckles with him, and that was a note on the Tulsa departures. Their offensive line coach headed to USC, Zach Hansen. So
and
Tulsa,
you know who Hansen's wife is? The recruiting coordinator of Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Annie.
Yeah.
Annie Hansen. I've seen her on Twitter and whatnot. So, yeah, he's leaving to go take the USC job with Lincoln Riley, and now they're losing their DC and Carlton Buckles.
Joseph Gillespie was a football coach at Stephenville. He was a head coach. He was also under the Art Briles Stephenville dynasty that they had back in the 90s, and then took over as the head coach for a little bit, and then became a part of that Tulsa staff with Montgomery.
Well, speaking of high school football, I'll go ahead and put this note right there. Chris Jensen, Euless Trinity head coach, has announced his retirement. Now, for a lot of people out there, they might not recognize Euless Trinity, but a lot of you probably do if you pay attention to recruiting and national high school football rankings and things like that. Trinity's been a powerhouse program for going on a couple of decades now at this point. But yeah, head coach Chris Jensen announces his retirement.
Trinity High School has the Haka Dance. That's the one because of their Tongan community. And Craig, remember, that was one of the great games we did. They lost to what was Craig's alma mater and Jennifer's alma mater, Lee, now Legacy, in the semifinals in 04 to go to the state championship and beat Westfield.
I love watching Euless Trinity play.
Yeah.
They knock people around. It's a difficult game to prepare for because you got to.
And he replaced a legend in Steve Lineweaver, who was unbelievable.
Yeah.
At Trinity and also South Lake Carroll.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's like an in-house or whatever, but that's a big job in Texas high school football that I'm sure a lot of guys are already lining up to get. Going back to the college coaching staff, because this is kind of a good place to kind of plug some of these in, because not all of them are necessarily notable headlines, but Texas Tech staff is starting to round out. They hired offensive coordinator Zach Kitley yesterday, comes over from Western Kentucky, where Bailey Zappi, his quarterback, who was a former Houston Baptist quarterback, is a transfer. So he's a guy with a lot of experience, and he just lit it up. Could have been the Heisman finalist pool. I mean, there are certainly some people who tried to make an argument for him, but, obviously playing at Western Kentucky and the fact they lost a handful of games, even with him breaking all these records, probably didn't help his case. But he had a phenomenal year. So Kitley, the OC at Tech now, but also now announced is that he'll be bringing his Western Kentucky offensive line coach with him. Stephen Hamby will be the new offensive line coach at Texas Tech. So Kitley had the Tech ties. Well, Hamby, a former Texas Tech offensive lineman. So Joey McGuire filling that staff with a lot of Texas Tech folks and people who know the Lubbock area, and just about done. I mean, he still needs to name a defensive coordinator at this point, but rounding out that staff now and pretty much filled up on offense.
I was curious when Cumbie took the job at Law Tech if he would discuss that with Graham Harrell, the former star at Texas Tech, and of course has been at USC. He's now looking for a job. Mm-hmm. And remember, Harrell was courted by Texas just a couple of years ago when he was at USC. And then, because I know he has an incredible close friendship with some of the players or coaches at the Baylor staff, some that probably have kind of looked at him with a little bit of an eye because of what they've done recruiting-wise, but I wouldn't have been surprised if he hadn't picked up the phone and called Sean Bell just to ask who was the quarterback's coach at Baylor. So that's great news. I didn't think Sean would go, but hell, if you have an opportunity, and so that's good that they filled that job with Kitley.
Virginia Tech has announced their new defensive coordinator, Chris Marv, former Vanderbilt linebacker, but was on the staff at Florida State, Paul. So he's now Bolton, Florida State, and will be the new DC at Virginia Tech under Brent Pry. And Brent Pry actually coached him when he was a senior at Vanderbilt back in 2011. So that's pretty cool to come full circle. And you talk about like young and up-and-coming coaches, just 32 years old. Yeah. So making a big leap at just 32 and a name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, you're already at DC at 32. And I think that Virginia job is one that if they get it right, I mean, that's a really good fertile recruiting area.
It's a beautiful part of the country.
Beautiful part of the country. The school's fantastic. It's got a great academic history. They just haven't been able to get it right for, going on a while now.
Yeah, going on a little while. So that's an interesting hire, and we'll see what plays out there with the rest of the Virginia staff or Virginia Tech staff. There's a young up-and-coming coach on the rise and a big move up to being a very young defensive coordinator. Did y'all watch Monday Night Football last night?
I did.
Yeah, it's the most unique thing I've ever seen.
In what way?
Well, you're going to bring it up, right?
I mean, first of all, the weather for one.
They're right off. Where is Buffalo? Off Lake Erie?
Yeah.
Is it?
I don't know if it's off Lake Erie, but yeah.
I don't know. It's cold as a blank, and it's windy, and that's why it's Buffalo. And you want home field advantage up there. And they used to get it back, Kelly and Bruce Smith. God, it was miserable, and they threw 4 passes and won the game.
It is Lake Erie. You were right.
3?
3 passes.
It is Lake Erie.
Yeah.
It's colder than
a witch is, you know what? Yeah.
Yes. And Belichick Mac Jones did the perfect, flawless job at quarterback by handing the ball off to many people.
Yeah.
Did you see what Matt Judon said after the game? He's
No.
like, hey, it's a great performance for everybody except for Mac. All he did was turn around and hand the ball off. But the Buffalo defenders are all pissed off when somebody says that embarrassing. He's like, man, they scored 14 points. I mean, what are you supposed to do? They scored 1 touchdown whatever it was. And it was. Bill Belichick had a plan, and that's why when I asked Bryce Petty about it, it was impressive. Loved the Manning cast last night. Had Letterman and Joe Buck on it. Were both really good. They cut Letterman off, though. The commercial hit halftime. Letterman's in the middle of the story and cut him off.
Why?
Because they threw a commercial.
That was very awkward. Of course, he's funny and it was like even Peyton Manning asked him about his football days. He goes, "Have you ever seen me have you ever seen me in the shower? He was like, no, I didn't play football. So
yeah, well,
good.
it was a very interesting game. The Patriots just ran, and ran some more. It was like watching Navy, almost, of just not throwing the football at all. Mac Jones was 2 of 3 passing for 19 yards.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
2 of 3 passing for 19 yards. He had a 4.3 QBR, which is pretty low. But
they didn't need to throw.
They didn't. I mean,
was it
and you
Dante
also
Harris?
probably
Yeah.
you really couldn't. And it's Damian Harris.
Harris, yeah.
Played at Alabama, but yeah, I mean, it was also tough to throw given the 40-mile-per-hour wind gust. I mean, just an insane environment. Patriots ran for 222 yards and just had the 19 yards receiving on the 2 receptions. Pretty insane. Buffalo, 99 yards rushing as the Patriots defense played really well. And you look up and the Patriots are 9-4, and they're on a big winning streak. And there's no Brady. It's just Belichick still at this point, but he's gotten Mac Jones and these cats to back to where they typically are. So that was a nice win, although an ugly win for the Patriots last night.
You should have seen the emotions on the sideline of the Patriots, knowing that they went into Buffalo, stole one, got a game up on the team that's right behind them as they take control of the AFC East a year after they drop back, and here they are again.
Also, Baseball Hall of Fame announced they'll officially have 6 more members via committee voting. And there was some slights. You can always argue about the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, the other ones, because the vote comes in January, right, Paul?
Yeah.
The modern day. But I like these names.
This is the committee voting.
Yeah.
These are the names that are being added to the Baseball Hall of Fame. They're announced by President Josh Rawitch. Minnie Minosa, former Negro League star, Mr. White Sox, 9-time All-Star.
Yeah, and he would do a thing where every decade he would play in a game for the White Sox in spring training, and he did it when he was 80 and got a hit.
That's crazy.
And so
Gil Hodges, longtime Dodger first baseman, won a couple World Series, and was also the manager of the Miracle Mets in 1969.
Gil Hodges.
Long overdue for Gil Hodges.
Yeah, and by the
especially.
way, I had an opportunity. There was a time back when I first got into radio in the early 90s. I had an opportunity because they had this game that came into Tyler that was helping to raise money to rebuild Mike Carter Field. And Minnie Minoso one time, it wasn't there, but somebody that was a part of that group remembers setting us up with a couple of interviews like Harmon Killebrew, Minnie Minosa. It was phenomenal. Henry Aaron, of course, was great, but golly, he played. How many decades did he play? Like 8?
Yeah.
Or was that one of the other guys that you're about to mention?
No,
I'm happy
played,
for Gil Hodges, though. That's good.
Jim Cott, Twins lefty.
Yep.
He played for a long time, won 16 career Gold Gloves, which is the second most all time. Only Greg Maddux had more. Tony Oliva, former Twins star, won a batting title as a rookie of the year. 8-time All-Star, 2 World Series as a coach. Buck O'Neil, Negro League star and manager.
That's the one.
And helped create the Negro League Baseball Museum, which is, I believe, in Kansas City.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things. I've been there in my 10 or so Kansas City trips. I've been there 3 times and it's a great thing to do because I've had time to kill in time before a flight where, you have to change your flight at the last minute or, I booked it late on Sunday. And so I had lots of time and I went there. I've seen everything at that museum. And yeah, good for Buck O'Neil. That's a great museum. If you ever go to Kansas City, you got to go to that Negro League Museum.
Yeah, and Bud Fowler, earliest known African-American player in professional baseball, also mentioned. All these are posthumous with the exception of Cat and Leva. And so that was a Golden Days era ballot for those first 4, and then the early baseball era ballot, which is all that gets very kind of confusing, quite frankly. But those 6 are going in. And then the big, I guess, point of contention was former Phillies star Dick Allen.
Yeah, that hurt.
He passed away last December. He's obviously been a big point of contention for people who have been arguing about the Hall, and he had missed it by 1 vote back in 2014. This time around, he missed it by only 11 votes. So that was kind of the big, I guess, controversy, if there was one for baseball folks, was his omission.
Dick Allen, he was not the easiest, friendliest. Paul and Craig, you have that list of our guests. Do you have the list of our guests?
I haven't updated in a while, but yeah.
Didn't we have him on?
Dick Allen?
No, I don't think so.
No, I think so.
I don't think so. I think we had a Negro League, the
guy from the museum.
Yeah, from the museum we had on.
But
I know
Dick Allen wouldn't have been Negro Leagues. He would have been with the Cardinals and
I know.
Phillies.
I'm saying of the things that we mentioned, though, that's the one thing I know that we did have. I don't recall Dick Allen ever being on the show. I could be wrong.
I thought we did, but maybe not. But Tony Oliva, Rod Carew were on the same team back with the Twins with Killebrew, and they really never did much. But they had some lineups that were dangerous back in the day, and Jim Cott, of course, one of the pitchers then as well.
Yeah, we definitely haven't had him,
Okay.
based on what I've seen. And baseball's celebrating by being in a lockout, I guess. That's how they're going to...
Got to put something out there.
Got to keep that momentum going.
How dangerous is for them? How dangerous is it for them to have a lockout right now when there's so many more opportunities for people to put their attention elsewhere?
It's not great, especially when you just had one of the seasons where you get to showcase the future of the league. You know, Fernando Tatis Jr., Vlad Guerrero Jr.
A couple of years ago like that, right?
You know, Bryce Harper, you know, all these great young players that are super exciting and playing, what's his name, Wander Franco, you know, all these different players you have. And now, I think it'll be bad. See, right now, this is the time to be in a lockout. You're not doing anything anyway.
Yeah.
But if they're in a lockout on April 1st, then everybody's got their head way up their backside.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and just a couple more. Big hire at LSU. Frank Wilson returning to Baton Rouge. He is back with now the new staff under Brian Kelly. He's going to be like the associate head coach. And, you know, I saw Leonard Fournette say this is the greatest running backs coach I've ever had at any level, and I'll be around Baton Rouge more. So you already had that kind of response. And Frank Wilson, I mean, he knows Louisiana. And, you know, had a head coaching job at McNeese, but decided to step down to go pursue this opportunity. So I think that's a big-time hire for LSU. And I think, you know, anybody who knows Frank Wilson knows him in LSU and Louisiana. I mean, that's gonna be that's a smart hire by Brian Kelly.
Yeah,
smart hire.
Remember Tommy Moffitt was something we didn't bring up, the strength and conditioning coach at LSU, who's out, and I saw him retweeting quite a few things with Baylor in recent days, only because it was brought to my attention, and he was one of the legendary strength and conditioning coaches as well.
Yep, and I'll close it out with this: NIL, University of Texas. Tired of losing, baby. We're just going to go all in on NIL, and they are going all in on NIL. There's an organization, Horns with Heart, that was set up to specifically pay for their offensive linemen. They are all in. They're calling it the Pancake Factory, and each offensive lineman will be paid $50,000 per year, and it will be part of free use for not only their NIL, but also charitable causes. Like a portion of that will go to the charity of their choice. All told, it comes out to $800,000 combined for the whole group, $50,000 a piece annually. And as you might imagine, there's a few recruits that have taken notice, and then also a few other position groups who are like, well, where's our money? I saw a defensive back, I think it was like DeMarvion Overshown or something, and he's like, well, what about the linebackers, the DB? There's something he said, and you know, apparently they're working on that. There will be another Horns for Heart. It'll just be named something different, I suppose. But yeah, they're just going all in, and to basically can tell recruits now, like, hey, if you play offensive line, you get $50,000 every year.
All right, but here's the problem. It has never been about them accumulating and compiling elite talent.
No.
It's about fits. It's about developing even more so once you're on. They're not going to get any more. They're always in the top 5 or 10. I mean, okay, they're going to get maybe 1 or 2 more 5-stars. Maybe they'll get Quinn Ewers. I don't know. It's never been the problem. The problem has been you don't do anything enough with them once they get on campus. And there's a culture issue. And it's so obvious.
But it is a school where they really need offensive linemen and they need a quarterback, and NIL can, you know, money whip these guys and get them to come. Whereas if they were looking at it on the outside and saying, okay, who actually is the better football program? Are you picking UT?
No.
Like, if we're not saying tradition, if we're saying right now, Baylor or Texas, where are you going to go win more right now? You're going to go to Baylor. Oklahoma, Texas, where are you going to go right now and win more? You're going to go to Oklahoma. And you can do that down the line. Not every Big 12 school, but a lot of them. So, I mean, I know what you're saying. You're absolutely right. It's the attitude, if anything, more so than the talent level. I think sometimes, though, the talent level is vastly overrated because the recruiting services overrate them. Why? Because they're going to Texas. And you see it happen all the time. But, I mean, shoot, if you're a guy choosing now, you may need some cash.
Yeah,
so you choose Texas, and you get a guy you weren't going to get otherwise. But, yeah, there is the start of – it's not the start, but it's just a lot more of the NIL stuff, and we'll see. You know, obviously other schools are already like, well, how do we do this? And who knows where it stops. But if you're an O-lineman at Texas, you're going to be getting $50K a year. I
do know that there are some Baylor alums and I guess maybe even donors or fans who are a little bit nervous about whether Baylor is has their future in good hands when it comes to that. And I think that they're working on it. I know the site, we've done some things with players when it comes to NIL. One quick women's basketball note, because Paul wanted me to add at the end. UConn's player of the year last year, and Paige Beckers, had that knee injury. There was a thought she's out for the year, 6 to 8 weeks after a tibial plateau fracture. So that's that. And Florida men's basketball, stunned by Texas Southern last night.
Got thumped.
15 points to Texas Southern. Didn't they come in one year and beat Baylor early in the year? Was it Texas Southern or was it somebody else that I'm thinking about? Craig, is that it?
He's saying, yeah.
Yeah,
Don't look at me.
It was Texas Southern, yeah. All right, when we come back, David Hellman on the Cowboys. They've had a few extra days. They have Washington coming up, a team that's won 4 in a row somehow to get to 6-6, and they're now a player. Who knows what happens with the Cowboys at one point with that massive lead in the East, and it could shrink a game, full game, if they're not careful this weekend. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.